Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Average Intelligence Podcast. Oh, it stopped me. Okay, I take that back. Try this again. Average Intelligence Podcast. Welcome, everyone, to the Average Intelligence Podcast. You're in for another solo special tonight. Hope that is okay. Eric is still extremely busy with what he's got going on, but I guess one of us at least is dedicated to bringing you your weekly viewing. At least we try our best. We took last week off in observance of Thanksgiving, so hope everyone had a happy, fun, and safe Thanksgiving. But anyway, it's time to get the show on the road. I really wanted to do this not by myself, so I hope some people tune in with the chat to make this a little bit more interesting. If it sucks, we'll probably just do it again some other time with a guest. But I remember, and I think I said it on the podcast, I'm not 100% sure, but I remember I remember thinking at least, when I heard about the Ahmaud Arbery trial, I remember thinking to myself, well, that sounds kind of similar, in a similar vein, but I didn't know many details, so I kind of refrained from talking about it. Finished up the Rittenhouse trial, and then I started to dig into this. I suspected some things about the case, but again, having not read a ton about it, and at that point, most of what I had heard was kind of through other channels, not even through valid news sources. I was very hesitant to say anything, but I got to dig deep, watched some of the testimony, not all, kind of similar to the Rittenhouse case, although I will admit to watching less of it and I watched the video that was released, and then I want to say it was the Associated Press did a really good and interesting video kind of detailing what the investigators think happened. And I got to tell you, after watching that, the almost entirely guilty verdicts didn't surprise me one bit. But what should be happening, as is usually the case, at least here lately, what should be happening in the aftermath of both of these cases is actually not happening. And that is having a sincere, nuanced, and attempted positive conversation about these two cases and their differences and their similarities and what these really mean to the world at large. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing here. So the first thing I wanted to touch on is how self-defense, or at least the not the presumption, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not allegations, I guess the plea of self-defense in both cases and how they differ, which I think is very important. And I think if you paid attention to each of these cases, you see there's a night and day difference in terms of, you know, the Rittenhouse claim to self-defense and the McMichael's claims of self-defense. I think what happened, as far as I can tell, what happened with the McMichaels is what people are saying Kyle Rittenhouse did, but they're not even. The only thing they have in common is the fact that a firearm was involved. Other than that, you know, because according to the investigators, the McMichaels chased Ahmaud Arbery along with their neighbor, whose name escapes me at the moment because whenever I get on the podcast, I have massive brain farts, which is why I really should take notes, because if you watch the early episodes, when I take notes, it's actually pretty good, but I'm busy. I'm really busy. The burnout is real. But I'm here, so say thank you. I'll say you're welcome, and we'll move on. Where does I say? Okay, so the McMichaels allege, or at least whichever McMichael, see, this is the problem. Whichever one of the McMichaels actually shot Ahmaud Arbery claimed that he was acting in self-defense because, and it's in the video, Ahmaud Arbery I don't want to say he charged him, but he got into a scuffle, a physical altercation. At one point, it looked like Arbery hit the guy. Now, here's the difference. Arbery did get into a struggle with the guy, but it's because he was being chased in a truck by dudes with guns. I think most of us faced with that, and if we felt that our only course of action would be to try to take the gun away from our attacker, our assailant in this case, who had been multiple times chasing him, and Arbery had, tried to avoid them, changed direction, and they kept coming after him. So it was pretty obvious that they were chasing him. In this case, it was obvious. I think they even admitted to pursuing him. And then the neighbor even blocked Ahmaud Arbery's way and started pursuing him again. That's how we got the cell phone video, because he was going after the truck after Ahmaud Arbery had changed direction and run past both vehicles, I believe. So anyway, only at that point does Ahmaud Arbery become, at least as far as we can tell, I don't even want to say violent because it has such a negative connotation, but I guess violent is the only appropriate word. But violent in the sense that he's taking physical action against another person. I wouldn't even want to say with malice, legally or otherwise, because to me this is much like I think this is an even clearer case of self-defense than the Rittenhouse case on the part of Ahmaud Arbery. And I wish it had gone this way, honestly, for multiple reasons. But I wish that, Ahmaud Arbery had somehow managed to basically defend himself, and then we could have had a totally different trial where I don't even know if he would be in defense, because to me that wouldn't even go to trial, because if you watch that video, it's obvious who the aggressors are. And again, this is where it gets a little tricky, because you have to take into account individual state laws. But as far as I understand it, Georgia state law does not recognize self-defense if you are the aggressing party, similar to the Wisconsin law. The Rittenhouse prosecution was essentially trying to prove that Kyle Rittenhouse was the aggressor in this situation. But the Arbery case in Georgia, I mean, it's crystal clear, obvious to anyone who is motivated in any way, shape, or form by logical thought or reason that Ahmaud Arbery would have been was acting and would have been acting in self-defense in this case. I don't know. I can't think of anyone who would allege that after being chased by two trucks in multiple directions, still following you, that you're, getting physical with someone would not be considered self-defense. And it boggled my mind that these. And I want to be very careful here because, again, white guy. To me, it did seem like there was a racial component to this. One of the investigators, I did not hear this in the video. I think they may have cut it. But one of the investigators who testified alleged that one of the McMichaels, I believe the one who shot Ahmaud Arbery, actually said afterward when he was lying on the ground, effing N-word. Which, I mean, if that's accurate and that was said, I mean, that's not much dispute there. This is a case that the anti-Rittenhouse people wanted. And yet I can't help but notice that we're not, and with a guilty verdict, no less, on all three of them, mostly guilty. I think it was almost across the board guilty on all counts for all three. Yet I'm not hearing a lot of celebration about how the justice system prevailed and worked. Unfortunately, and tragically, Ahmaud Arbery was killed, but some degree of consolation for society, at least, is that this was justice being served, because these guys were all found guilty. I haven't had a chance to look into what the sentencing was, and that sucks. I actually feel bad about that, because they were This is what I'm talking about. This is the problem. And we don't have enough viewers yet to do this full time. So you guys really need to up the subscriptions, tell your friends, listen, comment, share, like, check out the audio platforms where we can possibly actually make money, maybe. And then you can check out our official merchandise store in the link down below. But anyway, so back to the Ahmaud Arbery case. I mean, to me, this just seemed like a crystal. This is what everybody who was on the Rittenhouse is guilty train. I mean, this was exactly what they wanted. They had a clear-cut case where, as far as I can tell, racism was involved, or at least a factor. And they were all found guilty. I could not fathom. It would have been a travesty of justice if these guys, if any of them had been found not guilty. I think the father was not guilty. I found not guilty on one of the murder charges, maybe because he wasn't the one who actually fired the gun. Like, I don't know. That's just my best guess. But I think that the younger, I want to say it was Travis was the younger one, but whoever the younger one was, he was found guilty on all counts. The father was found guilty on 7 of 8, I believe, and then I can't even remember the neighbors' stuff anymore. But yeah, this is it's pretty clear cut. But the McMichaels alleged that they were claiming or Mr. McMichael was claiming self-defense against Ahmaud Arbery. But it's like, as I said before, if you drive up to somebody and pull a gun on them and they go to try to take the gun and hit you in this manner, like Ahmaud Arbery wasn't chasing them down and then they got in the truck and came after him, because I know some people might listen to that and be like, well, that's what Kyle Rittenhouse did with Rosenbaum. It's like, from what we could see in the video, from what we could clearly see in the video that could be authenticated, Rosenbaum was chasing Kyle Rittenhouse as they came into the video frame. What happened before that? I don't know. I wasn't there. And for that enhanced drone footage, I still couldn't see shit. And the jury clearly agreed, at least with the sentiment of that assessment, because they found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty. Which that gets us to the kind of the crux of both these situations, because while I'm sure some people are upset about the conviction in the Ahmaud Arbery case, but it's certainly not the majority. And I mean, if you look on social media, most of the people, I can't say all because that would just be factually untrue. I haven't seen everything I've seen. From what I can tell, everyone who was, thought that Kyle Rittenhouse was innocent is also, I don't want to say happy about, but at least satisfied with the verdict of the Ahmaud Arbery case. So it seems to me, and again, could be biased, I don't know, but it seems to me that once again, the people who are on the hard left are dissatisfied when their narrative is not taken into account. But then even when they're given one where the narrative that they spin is at least partially correct, if not fully in this particular case, I haven't heard much. And again, this might be, I don't even want to say it might be incidental that I just haven't seen a lot. So if you have, let me know. But like, for example, I haven't seen too many politicians comment on the Ahmaud Arbery case, not nearly as much as I heard about Rittenhouse after that verdict. Not even close, as a matter of fact. But it's that fundamental, thing. It's that most of us believe that the justice system is at least functional. It might have some flaws, but it is not completely worthless. Like, there are plenty of cases that go through every day where justice is served and, guilty people go to jail and innocent people go free or go to prison, not jail. But then there's a select group of people, and I mean, these are the hardcore lefties. I'm not even going to say liberal, hardcore leftist, borderline just crazy people that think the entire justice system is inherently, I don't even want to say flawed, inherently broken. Like it's impossible for it to be fair or to work. And they want to tear it all down. But like so many other things, what's your alternative? Okay, I'll bite. Maybe the justice system's not perfect. Hell, I know for a fact the justice system's not perfect because I feel bad about this. There was another man who was found guilty of murder a long time ago. I want to say in the 70s or the 80s, who just got set free based on new evidence that came up. So no, the justice system is not perfect. But what's your alternative? The court of public opinion? That's not a good idea. You know, the flaw of true democracy is that the 51% can vote to execute the 49%. So mob rule is not a viable option. I submit to you, same thing with capitalism. You know, they all say capitalism sucks, capitalism is broken, capitalism's okay. Maybe you're right. But if you're right, what's your solution? What's your alternative? Socialism? Yeah, well, we've been over that. I don't need to get into that. But that's the annoying part whenever I see these articles or hear people talking about it or anything like that, is it's like, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe the system doesn't work. Maybe it's broken. It's certainly not perfect. I'll be the first to admit that. But what is your alternative? It's been a pet peeve of mine for pretty much my entire life when people, I don't even want to say complain, when they point out flaws in someone else's plan or like the way they do things, their operations, just the way they get things done, but they don't offer up any alternative or improvements or suggestions. They just complain, and in worst cases, they just shit on everything, but offer up no alternative, not even a viable alternative. It'd be one thing if they proposed a stupid idea, but they don't even do that. They propose nothing. They just bitch, moan, and complain about the status quo. And okay, well, you know what happens when you don't have anything to replace the status quo with? You still end up with the status quo. Either that or you let the crazy people take over like they did in the French Revolutions, both of them. You know, trade in a king for an emperor. Actually, that's crazy. I should do a video on the French Revolution, the crazy one where they ended up with the new calendar and the new days of the week. Sorry about that. Anyway, leave that alone. I hate computers. But yeah, should do a video of that. Not a lot of people know that the French actually came up with new days of the week and new holidays and new month, a completely new calendar, which made no sense. I want to say it was a 100-day calendar. I can't remember. Anyway. New holidays. It was very confusing. Oh boy. Yeah, this is going to be a short one, I can tell. Nobody's chatting. We need conversation. Eric, you need to get in your new house. I can't do this on my own. Oh boy. What else we got? In other Rittenhouse news, I guess that I don't know if he's already filed suit or said he was planning to file suit, but I believe a suit has been filed, or at least they're planning to file a suit against the two members of The View. I believe Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg. I could be wrong. But Kyle's going to be suing some people, essentially. So that'll be fun to watch. The problem is, and I actually heard, it was on the Timcast IRL podcast. They were talking about this, and I was in the same camp. I thought that Rittenhouse had, essentially a sure thing, but they had a lawyer on whose name escapes me. I apologize, because he was very, very good and very, very smart and very, very informative. And he said the problem that Kyle's going to run into is that everyone is going to claim that when they made those statements, Kyle was at that point a public figure, which makes it all but impossible to claim libel or slander, which is true. It's not directly in the First Amendment, but it's one of the legal precedents that has the First Amendment in mind. It's kind of like how you can pretty much say anything you want about the president within, I don't even want to say within reason, because I mean, think about things that they said about Trump and Biden, and nobody got in trouble for that. But I don't know. I would see where this is going to be tricky, and this is so not a legal analysis, so do not quote me. This is just my opinion, the way I see it. And I'll admit I am biased because I think Kyle should sue all these people until they've got nothing left, including CNN and including the president of the United States and the vice president and Jen Psaki. And the list goes on. But the way I see it is that he was not a public figure until these mass news medias, or the mass news media and politicians made him a public figure through these statements by calling him a white supremacist, by saying that he came there and shot to shoot protesters. I want to say it was the Guardian that said that he shot 3 black people, and then there was some other news outlet that said he opened fire into a crowd. Which, well, no, he didn't open fire into a crowd. I mean, the most frustrating thing about the Kyle Rittenhouse case to me was the amount of people who didn't watch any of the testimony, didn't watch any of the videos, just went based on what, MSNBC and CNN and the BBC and all the news media, with the exception of Fox. Now, I'll get to them in a second. Basically, every major media outlet except for Fox News was saying was happening with the Kyle Rittenhouse, what happened in the Kyle Rittenhouse situation. Now, Fox News, on the other hand, not going to forget them because they're just as bad. They just go the opposite direction. Well, yeah, they're just as bad, but they go the opposite direction. They really, 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 really emphasized the criminal records of the people that Kyle Rittenhouse shot, which, here's the thing. And again, they brought this up with Ahmaud Arbery because I don't remember what his prior charges were, but what I had to remind a lot of people on the other side when we were talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case is like, okay, yes, and I don't need to go into particulars. If you know, you know. Joseph Rosenbaum was not a good human being, but that had no bearing whatsoever. Those prior convictions did not give Kyle Rittenhouse the right to shoot Joseph Rosenbaum. Fortunately, that is not what was up for debate. What was up for debate is whether or not Kyle Rittenhouse felt that he was in imminent danger based upon Rosenbaum's actions. And if it were me, I would have felt the same way. Some dude's running at me, as far as I can tell, with no reason other than, because why else would you rush someone like that other than to hurt them? If you don't know them, because, I've had friends run up, but even when a friend runs up to me, it's usually a light jog, unless they're trying to save my life, but at that distance, good luck. And it's pretty obvious that Joseph Rosenbaum was not a friend or trying to save Kyle's life at all. And then they brought up Ahmaud Arbery. I don't remember the charges, but he did have some prior criminal history from what I understand. But that doesn't mean you get to shoot him. Any of that is completely irrelevant in the case at hand. And that's one of the great things about our justice system, is because it doesn't matter what you did before that moment, that whatever the court is trying to decide. The only time it could come into play is when you're trying to establish, I guess, I don't know, morality, but, I don't even think that the defense, to my knowledge, I didn't see the Kyle Rittenhouse defense even try to go there, other than maybe an emotional appeal during the closing statements. Because, he wasn't a nice man. But even when they did that, I was just like, guys, no, that's not. No, you've got enough ammunition. You don't need to. Now, the one prior conviction that was relevant was in the case of Gage Grosskreutz, who, for some reason, I thought his name was Nick, the second Kyle Rittenhouse podcast, so I apologize about that. Because, boy, did I feel stupid. I'm like, Gage, where the hell did I get Nick from? This is dumb. But anyway, his prior DUIs, and then the fact that he was technically, if for the audio streamers, I'm using finger air quotes, illegal carry because his concealed carry permit had expired. Which, I mean, legally, yes, he was in the wrong, but I like the prosecution, I don't think is doing anything with that. What is interesting is that he had some, I think one DUI disappear shortly before trial. It was after the incident, but before the trial, which that's interesting. And then I wouldn't be surprised. Well, actually, I would be surprised if those two prosecuting attorneys didn't get in any sort of disciplinary action against them for prosecutorial misconduct. Say that one fast 3 times. Prosecutorial misconduct. Because anybody who watched that trial, I mean, that was just... that was... Wow. I mean... I quite enjoyed watching the judge tear Thomas Binger a new one twice. Because, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but even I was like, whoa, hey, you might want to tread lightly there, dude. Am I the only one who's loving the fact, though, that they're starting to stream these court cases the way they are? I think they've been doing that for a while, but... Like, now here's some semblance of a silver lining. I'm a fan of this. I like the fact that we can watch the entire court proceedings, even when the jury is dismissed. Love it. Because that's how you avoid the farce that was the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. At least to those who didn't watch it. Which, I'm sorry, if you're going to have an opinion on it, particularly one that goes against the verdict, I'm sorry, if you didn't watch at least some of the trial and you're trying to quote what happened, stop. Because some people watched the entire trial. I'd say I probably watched at least half of it, if not a little bit more. But I watched a lot of it. I think I only missed actually 2 days of testimony. I could be wrong, though. I watched most of it, like I said, at the very least half, but that's a conservative guess. And I was talking to people who had no fucking idea. Like, there are still people saying that he illegally crossed state lines with that firearm. It's like, no, he didn't. That charge got thrown out before the end of well before the end of the case. I think it was like 3 or 4 days before closing arguments that got thrown out. See, now I'm going on memory, and that could be, that's not a good idea for me. But, and then people were still talking about, he was out after curfew. It's like, that got thrown out at the beginning. It's not an issue. Everyone there was out after curfew. That would have been silly. Everyone who was out there was out past curfew. It's irrelevant. And okay, what's that, a misdemeanor? Okay, whatever. Who cares? That's not what we're talking about. Yeah, this is going to be a short one. I'm running out of thoughts. But what's interesting about both these cases is you have two, I guess I'll use the word shooter, two people who shot other people, both of which claim self-defense, but drastically different circumstances. Drastically different. And self-defense in a legal precedent is really, really tough. Really, it's tough to disprove. Oh, thanks for whoever liked this, by the way. You should really use the chat there. Help me have a conversation here. But we appreciate the like. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe and turn on those notifications so you get notified when we go live and when we upload clips. And then you can take those clips and you can share them with your friends all over social media, because we don't always do politics. Sometimes we do nerdy stuff. Sometimes we do movie reviews. Sometimes we even just play games. We do it all, and we take requests. Sometimes we do parody shows, and sometimes we have special guests and guest hosts even. We had Ben Shapiro and Alex Jones on that one time. That was a rip roaring good time. Made so much money on those ads. The state of Florida, I guess, has had an uptick in residents thanks to that ad. I can't prove it, but I'd like to think that it was us. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, I'd like to think that it was Ben because it wasn't us. It was Ben. Eric, I need you back, buddy. I can't do it on my own. Those of you that are still listening, thanks for bearing with us. Let's see what else is there because there are. I just find it. I find it. I kind of touched on this before, but I guess this is a better way to say it. It's not funny, but I find it interesting that the Kyle Rittenhouse case was immediately framed as a racially motivated case, and that turned out to not be the case because everyone. Now, granted, okay, as far as I could tell, Jump Kick Man in the Rittenhouse case was black, but I think, but it's so Kyle Rittenhouse technically did shoot at a black person. He missed. So that was one thing that a lot of the conservative outlets were pointing out. It's like, well, all the people he shot were white. It's like, well, he did shoot at least one black person. He just happened to miss. But again, that the guy kicked him in the face, or at the very least tried to kick him in the face. I think he kicked him, but either that or he was trying to kick him and Kyle moved with it. I guess the best way to describe it, as far as I could tell, is that the guy was trying to kick him in the face and Kyle kind of rolled with it, whether the foot made contact or not. He kind of rolled with it, which, it might have saved his life for all I know. I don't think it was racially motivated, but the second case, the Ahmaud Arbery case, it would be very hard to get it would be very difficult to get someone to convince me that wasn't at least partially racially motivated, because let's look at what led up to this. Okay, so there were thefts in the neighborhood, and the two men allegedly had reason to believe that Ahmaud Arbery was the perpetrator behind those thefts. This is yet to be proven or disproven because we don't know. But again, let's assume for a minute, and I'm not saying this is fact, but let's just assume for a minute that Ahmaud Arbery was the person who was behind those thefts. And then everything transpired the same way. What they did, what the McMichaels did, was still illegal. Still illegal. It would be one thing if they caught him breaking into their houses and they shot him, or were able to detain him, I guess, for lack of a better word. That's a totally different set of circumstances. And then called the police and then waited for the police to arrive. In this case, from all the video I've seen, looked like he was just jogging. And last time I checked, jogging should be a crime because who likes to run for fun? But it's not a crime. And then they had some video of him, I guess, going into a house that was under construction. It was an open site, like it wasn't. I watched a short interview with the owner of that property who had essentially said that, they had video footage there and they had multiple videos of people going onto the job site. It was an open job site. Ahmaud Arbery just kind of looked around, didn't take anything. So from what I understand, you can only get a trespassing charge, or you can only be legally trespassing if you are told, or there is a written sign. You are told to leave the property and not come back, or there's a sign, and none of those criteria were met. And this is coming from both a legal expert on YouTube that I watched and from the property owner himself based on his interview. Because he had seen Ahmaud Arbery on the job site. It was on his camera. So there was no issue there. And then he's just jogging down the neighborhood. If you're watching, use the chat. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm stupid. Or tell me I'm right. Tell me you agree. Tell me something. So yeah, it's a totally different set of circumstances as opposed to him jogging down the street and then essentially one of the McMichaels, I believe the father, went back in the house and told the son, I believe this is how it went down, and told the son, get your gun, he's back. Or he's outside, or something to that effect. I don't recall the exact verbiage that I had been heard, but something to that effect. So not only was Ahmaud Arbery not on their property, he was jogging on the street, if I remember correctly, or even if it had been on the sidewalk, it would still be fine. So didn't even wander onto their lawn, from what I understand. And they grab guns, jump in a truck, and chase after him. Allegedly to effectuate a citizen's arrest. For what exactly? I'm telling you, what I would have really loved to have seen happen, not just to avoid an unfortunate death, a tragic death, a death that it should never have happened, was I would have loved to have seen, and I wish this for Ahmaud Arbery too, if he had just stopped. Not saying he should have. That's not what I'm saying. This is just what I wish had happened. Because I wouldn't have stopped either, not going to lie. But, if he had stopped and they had, quote, effectuated their citizen's arrest, and then the actual police came, I would have loved to have seen the reaction and be like, well, what was he doing? But the sad truth is he probably would have been taken into custody, and it would have eventually been cleared up. But unfortunately, if he had stopped and the police actually came, Ahmaud Arbery probably would have been arrested at least on suspicion of theft, although he had nothing on his person, from what I understand. So I would hope that they would have just been like, what the hell are you doing? And then Ahmaud Arbery could have sued or filed criminal charges against the McMichaels for attempted kidnapping and false imprisonment, which they were found guilty of, by the way. Those charges simply came from the state, which they would have too if Ahmaud Arbery had filed criminal charges. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. So now Ahmaud Arbery is dead, and he's not coming back, even though they were all found guilty, which this is the shittiest part of all this, is the fact that, yes, even though, quote-unquote, justice was served, someone unfortunately still died. And it's the same case in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I think we all would have much rather it had never happened. Kyle Rittenhouse, I believe, is part of that group. I sincerely believe he's part of that group. That we all wish this just hadn't have happened. But at the same time, both of these verdicts were important because what the Ahmaud Arbery case showed me was that, in fact, if on a case-by-case basis, the law holds up. Because like I said, I watched the videos from each trial and of what happened, not just the testimony, but of what happened. I said the same thing in the Kyle Rittenhouse case. The first time I watched those videos, I'm like, that to me, particularly the one after Rosenbaum when he was being chased. Those to me were obvious. Rosenbaum, I will admit, the Rosenbaum video still, I'm still a little iffy on the particulars. I do think it was self-defense, but I think maybe. And again, what do I know? I wasn't there. It wasn't me. But to me, the Rosenbaum shooting might seem to be a little excessive when you compare it to the other ones. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I would definitely err on the side of self-defense on that one, though, even just based on what I saw going down. And then you look at the Ahmaud Arbery videos. To me, that's classic. They're chasing him. And anything he did would have been clearly in self-defense. I kind of wish he had taken some sort of self-defense courses and known what to do, because I did notice when he was wrestling with the gun, he was trying to arm it away, and when you're trying to take anything that's a long barrel or anything long like that. What you actually want to do is hug it to your body, like bear hug it. But he also had another person to contend with who had a handgun, so I can see why, even if he wanted to do that, I can see why maybe he didn't. Which again, it wasn't me. I wasn't there. But unfortunately, and I think 3 shots were fired. I want to say he got hit by 2, or maybe he was hit by all 3, but from a shotgun too. That couldn't have been anywhere remotely close to pleasant. And frankly, it's a horrible way to die. Just bleeding out on the street, and all you were trying to do was go out for a jog. But like I said, even if Ahmaud Arbery had been responsible for some, theft, at that point, you didn't see him committing the crime. You may have thought you did, but you're also not a cop. So you don't get to make that call. And this is the key difference because, people are alleging that Kyle Rittenhouse was a vigilante. And I've said it on the podcast multiple times. Do I think he should have been there? No. I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse had any business being there. But if everybody else was there, I guess in a way he had a right to be there, I suppose. If he'd been my son, I wouldn't have let him go down there. I would have said, no. I don't care what your dumbass friends are doing. And I think I've said this on the podcast before too. I have said it in public. The Kyle Rittenhouse incident is basically a failure of adults to act responsibly in the interest of a minor in so many instances. Because you've got his both of his parents. I'm not sure how involved his father is, but his mother let him go. Dominic Black, who was 18 at the time, his idea, I believe their friend Nick was 19 or 20 at the time. So there's 2 adults. And then that Ryan guy that Kyle was palling around with when he was going out, responsible adult should have never done that. Never, ever, ever done that. Particularly with a 17-year-old. He shouldn't have done that with anyone. But if you're going to go out and do that, like don't let a 17-year-old go walking around in that volatile of a mess. But all that being said, I still maintain that Kyle Rittenhouse was in self-defense and the jury agreed. On the flip side, the Ahmaud Arbery case, that is a case of vigilantism. They wanted to go out and basically act like police. They wanted to apprehend a criminal, an alleged criminal. They thought he was a criminal. That's what I mean by that. I'm not suggesting that Ahmaud Arbery was a criminal, but in their minds, they believed, the McMichaels' minds, they believed that he was a guilty criminal. And they wanted to go out and serve justice. Now, the curious thing is that they did call 911, or at least they called the police. I don't know if it was 911 per se. I can't remember. I think it was, though. And even the dispatcher's like, what's he doing? And he even said, he's just running down the street. That's not illegal. It's not. So if the police weren't willing to come out, why would you think that you would be any different? What, were you going to catch him? I don't know. I don't even want to talk like that because I'm not talking to them. And I don't, to be frank, I don't really care what their opinion of the matter is. But on that note, I think as far as solo specials go, this has been an utter failure. Hopefully those of you that do listen to this after the fact enjoy some of it. And I will welcome all comments because I believe I shit the bed on this one, and I do sincerely believe that. But I will address any comments that you leave now or after the fact. And perhaps if you would like to see this topic done properly, with 2 people like we normally have in that format, just let us know. We can revisit this again some other time. But we wanted to give you your weekly episode of the Average Intelligence Podcast. I am working on getting some guest hosts our guest co-host while Eric is still indisposed, and hopefully he gets situated soon so we can get back to normal, because I realize that it's not fun to just people don't want to just hear me talk. It's not fun. I should definitely not do talk radio, I don't think. Or at least if I do, I should be able to devote myself full time for it so I can actually take notes and have a much better grasp of what I'm talking about. But 45 minutes is good enough. I think that solo special I did in the COVID one was pretty good, even though I spent most of my time reading. But the COVID passports one wasn't bad either. But I digress. I'm also very tired, so I will bid you adieu. Check out the links in the description below, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. Check out our official merchandise store. We have really cool shit on there, not gonna lie. And we will see you next week. And be sure to check out the clips. There's a ton of them. We have a lot of content coming and a lot of content out there. Also, be sure to check out that Arate Media YouTube channel, because there are some cool new videos coming your way on that one. So go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you will get notified when they go live. We will see you next week.